Hello, everyone. Welcome again to this other Spotlight edition after the Ask the Coach. Today we have with us Serah Tari. She is the Vice President of VLab and she does a lot of other businesses. We are welcoming her today to find out what she's doing, find out about her experiences. So if you have any questions, please ask them in the comments below. We will be sure to forward them to Serah later on, and she can probably reach out to you and help you through your inquiries. So Serah, please tell us more about yourself.
Hello, Sonia. Hello, everyone. Like you said, my name is Serah Tari. I'm originally from Pentecost. I started my walkabout as an entrepreneur in 2002, and I've since been self-employed. I started with businesses up in Santo. I call myself a jack of all trades because with every opportunities that I find, I do something out of it, and that is what has kept me going. I am now back in Vila. I came back to Port Vila in 2015. Did a business in tourism. 2015, along came Palm and destroyed the tourism business. It was a garden. And the garden, I had a garden tour done for tourists. And I didn't need to take them to a big garden or create a garden, buy a land and create a garden. I actually took them to my mom's garden. There are two things in life that Vanuatu people love. And everywhere we travel, whether we're overseas or wherever we go, we will sure have a nakamal or a place where people meet, and we will always plant the garden. So when I created my tourism business, it was a tour to a traditional nakamal and a traditional garden. And so when the cyclone came and Palm destroyed everything, there were corrugated roofing in my garden and everything, I couldn't do anything. I turned to soap making. I was interested in soap making, so I started making bathing soaps out of using local materials from the market. I bought ginger, I bought carrot, I bought passion fruit, and I used them in the bathing soap. So you'd get a Tana coffee scrub, carrot scrub, honey and carrot and ginger scrub, and all these things. And then slowly I came into other stuff as well. I was hired as because of my experience in tourism and I had a background in administration and everything, I was taken on by TVET, or now Vanuatu Skills Partnership, as a coach. I went to the islands and worked with clients on Malakula, on Malampa and Sanma. Came back, and that was when everything came up. I started up a consultancy business plus a soap making business. I went into consultancy. I was, some people from overseas heard about me, and I'm actually a consultant. I do consultancy jobs for the UN, not the UN, an organization called International Trade Center, which is a joint agency between WTO and United Nations, the UN. And so that was when I went into handicraft and started working with mamas in the market. I created an association called WEAVE, Women's Export Association Vanuatu. It's now dormant. I haven't stopped, and I'm not going to stop because it's export. It leads me into another product. We've done hats, we've done baskets, we've done all these things. And what I like doing is I like to be different. That is why my products will always be different. I don't like copying people's products because it doesn't take you anywhere. It's a product that belongs to somebody else, and they have the know-how about it. So you cannot create something that someone else has done that. Got into consultancy, and then along came COVID-19. When COVID-19 came, at the end of 2019, I started to look at the sales of, coming from tourists and coming into Vanuatu. And so I decided, no, we heard about COVID-19, so I said, no, I'm going to have to move out of the handicraft market. So I closed down my market and I left. I went home, sat there and thought, okay, what am I going to do? There's no more tourists coming in, but I heard stories. Way back in 2018, I heard stories from people from 2 different islands that they were using coconut as tea. So I now came up with a product, which is my coconut tea.
You have a long story, okay? You've been into very different businesses so far, working outside of Vanuatu, working within Vanuatu. I heard you mentioned before we were talking offline that you've also been in Santo for 15 years. Could you tell us about your experience there?
I was up in Santo. But I moved up to Santo. When you try and do good things, challenges, you come up with challenges. There was a challenge that came up in my life, a personal challenge, and I had to move away to Santo. I went up to Santo, and I had a stepfather who owned properties, and so I went to manage his property. So I looked at the properties and I thought, why, I can do something out of this property. So I turned one of the properties into a guest house. I turned it into a guest house, and I'm talking to everyone out there that you don't need a lot of capital to start a business. You can start very, very small. I started before the guest house. I sat outside the house when I was, I would go up there and come back, and I sat outside there and I saw people. Before mobile phones, we had public phones, and people would come to the public phones and talk on the phones, and the sun was hot and everything. And I have a friend who actually runs Sweetie Ice Cream. And her name's Sylvie. We used to work together, and so they had an ice cream thing down at the center point in town. So I thought, wow, I can start something like that here in Santo. And so, out there I saw that I had customers. So I started my business with 3 16-liter boxes of ice cream and 200 cones. I built that up. From that, I had the property there, sitting there idly doing nothing. I turned it into a guest house. And my guest house was the cheapest. It was 1,000 a bed per night. That was how I started. And then it just kept on going. If you ask me how many businesses I had run in Santo, I would say about 10 different little businesses. So I went from ice cream to guest house to handicraft. I was the first person. I'm not scared to say that I was the first pioneer to set up a handicraft business inside a shop, And then I had my fridge sitting outside the shop. They had the handicraft shop. So I'm not scared to say that I was the pioneer of, you go to Santo today and they have, each shop has about two ice cream, 2 fridges, and it all started because I started that in Santo. So yeah, and then from there, I had a spa, a hair salon, distribution. I sold Origin Energy cylinders, gas bottles, and gas stoves. Yeah, so you talk about anything, I think I've done it all.
So just as a fun question, which would you say was your favorite business to run?
My favorite business, actually, they were all favorites, but the one that I saw that was making the most money, that didn't have a lot of cost, was the guest house. And we all know that, if you own properties and real estate and all that, that's the best business these days. Yeah.
Okay, then let me rephrase my question. Maybe not the best or favorite. How about the most interesting one to run?
The most interesting one was, again, the guest house. Because you had people you could talk to. And then people came up with all these ideas about, maybe you can do this, maybe you can do that, maybe you can do that. And so, if it's any business to do with people, that'd be the best business.
Okay, so speaking about, say, people, right? You've been in Santo and then you moved to Port Vila, right? What are the difference doing businesses with people in Santo and here in Vila?
I don't know what it is, but maybe because Santo was smaller, but I found it easier to talk to other business people. But here in Vila, it's, you have to be able to talk to them, and then, you become like, you have to set a sort of a networking thing, and then you get to know people. But in Santo, it was like, you talk to somebody and they want to talk to you and all that. And the other thing, the other issue that I see that with us, that, we cannot deny it, is that, in business, we see ourselves as competitors. We shouldn't be competing. We don't have that much market out there to compete for. So, we help each other by saying, okay, if I can sell this, you sell this. Or, there are ways that we can actually do that. And my concern is especially to us women. We women, it is so difficult to work together. It is very, very difficult. Why? Why are we, competing in everything? We shouldn't be. We should be working together. And the hardest part of business in Vila is that working together.
Definitely. Okay, so now about your experiences in Vila. How did you get into VLab? Can you tell us more?
Look, well, what happened was Mark Antoine, who is the president of the association, wanted to create an association for business incubation. And so, he sort of asked around, for people who were interested. And so, or people who would be identified, and then they started looking for women in business. So he went to a women in business event that they held at the Chamber of Commerce, held at Chantilly's, and they came and so talked to somebody, and somebody said, go approach these people. And so he approached me at the House of Handicraft when I was in the House of Handicraft, and I said, definitely, I would love to, because my passion is entrepreneurship.
Would you say that was your only career, that you were working with other people, sort of like employed and not really self-employed?
No, working with VLab is a volunteer.
Oh, it's voluntary.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just volunteering my time.
Okay.
But
that's great.
Yeah, it's about being passionate. Nothing has stopped me, and I'm not afraid to say that. If I'm on the island doing training or whatever, if there's going to be a meeting for VLab or whatever, I get online. These days we have all this technology, so I go online. If it's virtual, I tell them to send me a link, and I log on there. And so this is it. I don't get paid, but we don't get paid, but it's your passion, what you do. And my passion is helping other people to become someone by creating your own business and running your own business. And if you fall, get up again. You have to get up again.
So you're very passionate about teaching people how to be self-employed, believing in themselves, being entrepreneurs. What would you say is like the biggest challenge for entrepreneurs, what they face when starting a business? Or, for example, I think of the first thing is fear, right? Fear of failure, maybe. What is your idea on that?
I see fear as something. It's true that people are afraid, but the thing about fear is that what I see is there's not enough awareness about what do we do, or where do you go for help and all that. And my advice to everyone here is that before you start a business, go and find out information. It's always good to find out information. They have all these departments around the government, government services that are available, but people don't know about it, and so nobody goes to look. And then we go and start a business, and then we find out that we have to pay permits, we have to pay licenses and all that, and then people start grumbling and saying, and then the business fails. Find out information first about what you have to do, and then work your way from there. But and this is why I keep telling people, if you see us somewhere, come talk to us. We won't charge you, but we love to share what we know. And if you need help, you see us, come and talk to us. We are here to help. And we've been like with Chris and Breakfast Consultancy and Beleni and the others. We have a group of us coaches who were actually offering free service. With free service where we can talk to people, and we're not going to charge you for that. And if I was people out there, I would go for it. But these are the opportunities that our people don't see, and they see it, they hear about it, but they don't come forward. And yes, they are. I don't know whether they're scared that people will talk or whatever. You don't have to be scared. Come out. If you really, really want to be something, you have to take the first step. Take the first step out there and reach out to people to help. And like you said, fear is probably, someone might laugh at me, someone would say this and someone would say that. My son laughed at me at the soaps and said, you know what, you're never going to sell that soap. And I proved him wrong. I took it down to one of these microfinance exhibitions in the seafront, and for one day I made 11,000 baht out of soaps. And I came home and the basket was empty, and he said, did you sell all that soap? I said, yes, I did. I said, it's the way you present the product. You talk to people, and you never know until you take that step.
Okay, so to presenting products, you brought today some of the handicrafts and
yes.
tea that you have. Please show the audience what you have.
I have. Then you have to excuse me because this is what I've actually found in the shop here, and so I decided I'll make do with this at the moment. So this is my coconut tea. It's a tea with it's packed inside this, and this is a sandwich, actually a sandwich box. I went looking around in the shops, and I thought, I want something that's different. I want something very different, and people will have a look at it and say, "What on earth is that?" And so I got this box, and inside that is my coconut tea, which is shredded coconut flakes, shredded coconut flakes, and this is that, and you put it into a teapot. And I have 6 different flavors. I started with one flavor, which was just coconut. And then I've got passion fruit, I've got ginger, I've got vanilla, I've got lemongrass, I've got lemon, and the dry coconut, the plain coconut. I started off with that, and then started thinking about, some people say, well, what do you think about tea bags? I've now got it in tea bags. Excuse my, it doesn't have strings. They're coming in strings very soon. And so this is what it is, tea bags. Yeah.
It smells really nice too.
Yeah, this is a ginger flavor, and if you're around with us, you can actually smell the tea, the ginger. The coconut is bought from the market, the ginger, the vanilla, everything is bought from the market in Vanuatu. So, you don't have to go far to buy these things. They're all around us here. And what we've done, what I've got going as well is, I think about all the coconut shells that we are using and wasting coconut shells. So we created a coconut shell handle for baskets. This is uncovered. We have some that are covered so that it's covered all over with pandanus. So, instead of us wasting coconut shells, we've sort of done this. And this is put up against an amber basket. But we've done it also with Pentecost basket. One of the other things that I'm actually, with the coconut tea, yesterday I got my first test result from a food lab in New Zealand, and I'm very proud to say that I've got it. Now I'll redo the packaging, and with the packaging I can also put the nutritional analysis at the back of the packaging, the packages that I do. So that is something that I've waited for so many years. I've started making the tea in 2018, but I kept it at home. My family and I just drink it until, they started talking about UMI-40 products and all that. What are we going to put out there? I tried selling the coconut tea, and it's something people want. So I'm going to continue to do that. And I know that one day it'll become one of the main Vanuatu-made products. And I'm proud to say that it will be.
This is awesome. I have never actually heard of someone going into so many different things at once, which begs the question, how do you handle all of this all at once? Please tell us your secret.
Thank you, Sonia. And I must say that, right at the beginning of all this, I was doing like almost everything that I can think of. What has helped me is, I must say that my best coach and business mentor is Chris Elphick from Breadfruit Consultancy. And I owe all these things that I know about these things to him. He has made me into who I am. He has made me able to plan, to do planning. And this is very important. We get into business, we in Ni-Vanuatu get into business without plans. And, he has taught me how to do plans. So I plan my day. At the moment, I'm doing consultancy. I am a consultant for another organization. I do my time, around the time that is due for that consultancy. And then I do my own business on the other day. So I prioritize time. Right. So I was able to do that after, I think, since I've started this since 2018. 2020. This is something about COVID. When COVID came in, we saw it as something that destroyed everything. Mm-hmm. To me, it didn't do anything. It gave us a break to sit back and rethink, re-strategize, sit back and think about what you are doing. If the tourism is down, what do you do? Mm-hmm. But we are not to see it as a problem, but look at problems and see opportunities in the problems. And I think with what is happening now with this pandemic and everything, you will find that people who see this, COVID as a problem, but see opportunities in it, they won't complain. They will just keep on going, doing whatever they do. And to me, that is what happened. Like when it stopped me from going to the market every day, I sat back and I thought, okay, what do I do? What I did was, the market was there, the tea, but I needed money, so I had to find consultancy job, do some work to help me and help my business. And so that is what I've been doing, and that is what is keeping me going. And my advice to others as well is that, if you ask for help and the government doesn't help you, and I knew before I blamed the government for this and that and everything, but I've come to learn. And I like this saying from one of the US president, don't ask what your government can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. So, I would rather, this is what I did with the tea. I asked for help for testing and all that. Nothing happened. I took my own initiative and went along and did that. And, if it's little money you can afford, do it. And then, maybe they'll help you later, hopefully. But otherwise, that is what entrepreneurship is all about. You take the risk, you do it. Whatever you have to do with whatever resources you have.
Definitely. So you talked a little bit about what your strategy during COVID. Is there anything you're doing for the June 1st opening? Do you have anything set, your plans for all of your businesses? Maybe for your coaching, what do you advise to other business entrepreneurs?
What I've done for this is also, there was another opportunity that I saw with COVID. I was also a trainer. For 8 months, I was a trainer with the Department of Labor of seasonal workers. Okay. And I trained people, and I looked at them and I thought, most of them, they go overseas just to work, but when they return, what are they going to do? Their business ideas, their thinking about business and all that is very, very limited. And so what has happened is I've created another business of mine, which is I run workshops. I run workshops with young people, and normally my main priority is school leavers, dropouts, people who've dropped out from school, and I'm creating little workshops. I call them workshops because I always imagine a workshop as a place where you go in to be serviced, like a car. One part is missing or something's wrong with it, and you go in to clear yourself up and change this and all that. So I say all my trainings are workshops, because that's where you go fill your head up with something new, like servicing your car and all that. So I started with this, and I started running a program called Finding Yourself. And I get the young people in and I talk about their dreams, their goals, and their vision, what they want to do in life. And it's just trying to build confidence in them, because you see a lot of young people and they seem like they don't have any confidence in themselves. And it's a pathway to two other workshops as well. One is finding a job, which is helping young people to write a proper CV, write a proper application letter, how to sit in an interview. And the other one is entrepreneurship, which is just basic entrepreneurship. So that is it. And for the reopening of the borders, I'm working on my tea. So when the tourists come in, they can actually buy my tea, and I have more baskets and more hats, because it's a good time to give jobs to these women. I have a whole lot of women behind me who, unfortunately, during COVID, they have nothing to do. So it's giving back to them as well, and this is something that I've always wanted. And one of the main objectives of our association is paying women for the money they are owed for the product they make. The time. It's difficult to say that, but if you can do that, you have to do it, so that they get money for their knowledge. What they make. Yes. Don't go pay just because they need money. That's not what it is.
Serah, I could talk to you all day. But unfortunately, we are out of time. And hopefully, maybe in the future, she could come back again as a guest. Are there any last words, maybe where people can find you, how they can reach out to you? Please let the audience know.
I have a business, and it was just a small business with a business name, but I've actually registered it as a company, and it's called Especially Local. And if you go onto my Facebook, you will find contact. My contact on, especially local in Facebook, and contact me anytime. And a lot of people are contacting me at the moment because of the workshops that we're doing. So that is where you can find me. And to my fellow Ni-Vans, don't be scared about that doing business. In business, entrepreneurs are risk takers, And someone said, this was an anonymous person who said, it doesn't matter how high you climb, but it's when you fall that you to get yourself up again is the most important thing. And my experience, I lost 10 years worth of business in 24 hours, but that hasn't kept me down. You have to keep moving and doing what you love doing. And if you're a passionate entrepreneur, go ahead and do what you have to do.
Okay, so trust me, Serah is a very friendly person. You can approach her anytime. Please don't hesitate to contact her. Thank you very much again, Serah, for coming with us today. And please check us out on our next live. We have another guest on Thursday at 4 p.m. So come to Espresso and we will bring you other guests. If you have any questions again for Serah or for us, please comment them down below or send us a message on our Facebook page. We will try and get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.